Hello everyone. Today I will be creating a game for my CMIT scripting final. I'll be using Python as my scripting language, and I'll be using Pygame as a library to draw things to the screen. The game that I'll be creating is a tower defense game. There'll be a tower in the center of the screen, and enemies will attack the tower from all different directions. The user's goal is to survive the attack. The way that they can survive is by clicking on the enemies to deal damage. If the enemy touches the tower, then the enemy will be destroyed, but it will deal damage to the tower. There's no win condition for this game. It'll just be a score to see how many enemies you can defeat before your tower is destroyed. Inside of my sprites folder here, I have AI generated images approved by the instructor for this game. Since this class is about scripting, there is no need for me to spend a lot of time creating my own artwork. Inside of here is just screenshots to prove that they're all AI generated. So to get started, I'm going to just create all of the scripts that we'll need. The first script that we'll need is main.py. This will be the main logic of the game. I'll then have entity.py. This will hold the entity class, tower.py, which will hold the tower class, and enemy.py, which will hold the enemy class. Essentially, what a class allows us to do is it allows us to make the blueprints for an object and then just construct that object many times. Inside of main, we'll start off. We need to import Pygame, since that's the library that we'll be using. You can download Pygame from pygame.org. They also have documentation there, which is what I'll be referring to for this project. I need to import system so that we can exit the script after we're finished. Import random so that we can get random locations. And import math so that we can do trigonometry with angles. Alright, so the first thing we need to do with Pygame is we need to initialize Pygame. Pygame has many modules, so we need to initialize all those modules. Next, what we can do is create a screen, so we'll name the variable screen, and we can use pygame.display.setMode to set the mode of the screen. The first thing is the size, which is going to be a tuple. I want my screen size to be 720 by 720, so that it's 720p, but it's a 1:1 aspect ratio. Flags equals 0 will make it so that the user cannot resize. This will fit onto most modern laptop and computer displays, so there's no need for them to make it any smaller. I'd rather keep things 1:1. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we want to create a clock, and we're going to want to create a mouse object. So for clock, we can use the time module inside of Pygame. So clock equals pygame.time.clock. Now this is a class, so we need to call the constructor by using the parentheses, and this will create an object. And then as for the mouse, it's pygame.mouse. This one's actually a little bit different. It's not going to be a object that we need to create, so we won't use parentheses. What we can do is we can do get position later on, which will be useful to see where the user clicks. Okay, the next thing that we want is just some variables that we'll be using throughout the script. One is going to be delta time. Delta time is just going to be the time in between frames. We want delta time in case if someone has low frame rates and there's more time between frames, then we want like an object to move more during that frame. Whereas if it's high frame rate, then we want the movement to be slower, but more often. Next thing that we want is a running variable. This is whether or not the game is running. So what we can do is while running, what this is doing is basically while running is equal to true, we can pull the events in Pygame. What this is doing is just getting all of the queued events with like keyboard inputs, mouse clicks, etc. So what we can do is for event in pygame.events, or pygame.event, what we can do is if the event.type is equal to pygame.exit, has to be all capital, or pygame.quit, then we can do running is equal to false. So this is going through all of the events that are queued. If the event is the quit type, which is probably based off of a random code, not a random code, but a set code, then we're going to set running to false. Okay, so outside of our while loop, this will only execute when running is false. We want to do pygame.quit. Now this quit here is a method, so we need the parentheses. And we want to do sys.exit. So that'll be the exiting of our program after the game is over, or after the user presses quit, which is the little X that you can see on the top right of Windows. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to fill the screen with a color, our background color. So what you do is you do screen.fill, and we want the background color to be white. And white is, with RGB, you have to put in the red, green, and the blue. Lowest value is 0, highest value is 255. So if we set red, green, and blue to 255, then that's white. Next thing that we need to do is we need to flip the screen. Basically what flipping the screen will do is it will display all the updates. It's like you draw on one side where only you can see, and then you flip it over so that the user can see. So it's pygame.display.flip. Just like this. This will flip all the surfaces. So like the screen, sprites, etc., images. Now what we want to do is we want to get to delta time. So delta time is going to be equal to the clock that we created, .tick, and it's a method name. So what tick is going to do is just get the time between the last time that we did clock.tick. It gets it in seconds, so we need to divide it by 1,000 to get milliseconds. Now with this is the very basic setup of this while loop. Now what we can do is we can go create our entity class. So the first thing that we're going to want to do in here is we're going to want to import Pygame. We're going to be using the Pygame module during this, so we need it, the display module. Next, what we need to do is we need to create the class. So the keyword for creating class is just class, and then the name of the class, which is going to be entity. There's no parentheses if the class does not inherit another class. Notice that the class name is uppercase, which is good practice in Python, and the script names are lowercase, which is good practice in Python. Our initializer is def init. This creates a method that initializes the object when it's called. The first thing we need to pass is self, which is like a pointer to the current object that's being created. What we're going to want is we're going to want the position. We're going to want the size. We're going to want the health. We're going to want the image path, since we're going to load an image. And anything else we can add a little bit later. So self.x is going to be equal to position of 0, because position will be a tuple of an x and a y, x being at the 0th index, and then the y will be at the 1 index. So we'll just get it like that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get the size. We're just going to do self.size is equal to size.